Hey guys, I just watched a video of, I'm going to get his name right, Ryan Swigler, if I'm pronouncing that correct. He was the founder of South African Satanic Church. And I watched his video and he talked about his conversion to Christ, how he became a follower of Jesus recently, like I think within the last 2 months. I didn't watch the whole video yet. Been really busy this week, but I watched enough to be convinced that he's sincere, which is very important, and I'll tell you why in a minute. And also very powerful what brought him to Jesus, and I just wanted to share that because I've kind of been tied up this week. This is the longest I've went that I can remember not making a video. I didn't make a video since last Saturday. This is Saturday. And kind of in a strange way ties in. And I'll try to explain that the best as I can. But Ryan Swigler seems sincere, and it's very interesting to me because I remember being a young evangelical back in the 80s. I don't know, maybe I was 20, 21, and I read this book, The Satan Seller, by a former Satanist who became a Christian, Mike Warnke. And I went to see him live, went to see him speak. He was also like a Christian comedian, and he was very funny. He was very funny, but then when he got to the end, and he would talk about the Lord and talk about these children that he needed to protect from Satanists, hey, he would get you so emotional that you'd give your last penny to this guy. And I supported his ministry for a while until a Christian author from Christianity Today did some investigation because some of his stories didn't make sense, and he proved this guy was a total fraud. Was never a Satanist. He was on Oprah Winfrey, he was on 2020, he was on 60 Minutes talking about Satanism. This guy was so convincing. And I was so ashamed of myself because I grew up in the inner city and I could smell a con artist a mile away. And I was like, how did I let this guy con me? I said, I'm never going to let another huckster con me again. And 30 years of evangelicalism, I've seen some good, solid, God-loving pastors, and I've seen some scoundrels. And on this show, I've revealed, you know, like everybody knows Benny Hinn and Kenneth Copeland, and these guys are all scoundrels. Jesse Duplantis, these are money-hungry grubs that don't even know Jesus. But there's been a lot of guys that people think are genuine, like John MacArthur and Charles Stanley, and I revealed some things that a lot of my Protestant friends were mad at me, and then I'm like, wow, I guess, yeah, I looked it up, you were right, that's true. So the only time I'm really hesitant, you know, is to reveal, to expose people. And I don't expose them by what I think or what I heard, hearsay. I'll show you the facts, or I'll show you them lying. You know, I've called out Taylor Marshall for lying several times, where I showed you what he said on the video, Pope Francis said, and then I showed you what Pope Francis actually said. You know, stuff like that. You know, I feel it's our duty to call out the wolves in sheep clothing that are dragging people to hell. But I'm usually reluctant with Catholics. I give Catholics more, I give them a long time before I call them out. Protestants, I'm ready to pull the trigger as soon as I spot a lie. But one Catholic, I'll just point out today, I heard this Catholic Zachary King was an ex-Satanist, so I listened to him, and I'm telling you, what he says just doesn't add up. He said he was a Baptist, then he became a Satanist. You know, he grew up in a Baptist church, so because he was a Satanist, he was so familiar with Baptist churches that he would infiltrate these churches and spend like 6 months to get people fighting and cause all kinds of problems and division and make a church split. And I've been in Baptist church. You don't need a Satanist to make a church split. It just comes naturally. One guy thinks he knows better than the other guy. You know, oh, what he's teaching is wrong, I can do it better, and they split, and then that church splits. I've seen one church have 6 splits in 5 years, a Baptist church. That's just man's pride and ego, you know. But yeah, so Zachary King said he would go and spend 6 months making these Baptist church split, and said he did it 50 times, 50 different churches. Never gives the names of the churches. No Baptist knows him from any church. And he's only like 55 years old. So you see how the math just doesn't add up? This guy, I would be this guy, recent ex-Satanist, again, Rianne Swigler. I just, I'm listening to him, and everything he's saying is adding up. He can be really good at manipulating people, but I feel he's sincere, and he's not going on all these TV shows. In fact, he said he's not even in a space, he's from South Africa, and so, talks with, a little more proper, I guess, than us Americans. But he said he's not in a space to talk to journalists, but he had a lot of questions, and he tried to answer them on his video. So I just want to say to him, I'm not going to reach out to you because you said, you don't want to talk to journalists. I'm not a journalist, and I probably wouldn't even know how to get in contact with you. But if you just happen to be watching it, then maybe it's God's will you come on and talk to me. And you just tell us your story, and one brother to another. So, but what was interesting was what this man said brought him to Christ. He said he became a Satanist because he was extremely broken and extremely hurt. And he's met thousands of Satanists, and they all come from a place of brokenness and hurt. They are all extremely broken. So the Satanist philosophy just speaks to them because it comes from a place of anger. Satanism comes from anger, and they can relate. Yes, I'm angry, and now I'm going to be empowered. So this is how Satan tricks these people, and then Satan just makes them more broken. And he said he's never experienced unconditional love a day in his life till he met 4 different people, and they were all Christians. Now, he doesn't specify if they're Catholic Christians or Protestant Christians. J.R.R. Tolkien, the author of Lord of the Rings, was a devout Catholic who led C.S. Lewis, one of the most well-known atheists at the time. He led C.S. Lewis to the Lord, and he said his main thing was to bring him to belief that God exists, and then that Christ was God. And then the next step was Catholicism, but C.S. Lewis passed away before he got to that step. But C.S. Lewis talks like a Catholic. He gave the best defense of purgatory I ever had. Check out my purgatory video, and I quote C.S. Lewis. So I don't know where he is. I just know he went from Satanism to a belief in Christ. And what did it was the unconditional love of Christians. And he said, when I called them and thanked them, they didn't even know what they did. And he said, you showed me unconditional love. One Christian just hugged him while he was still a Satanist. And he said he never felt such love. He never felt such care. And he said, the Satanist is just so angry, so hurt, and that unconditional love broke through. And he starts crying. He's like a grown, tough-looking guy, all tatted up on his head. And he starts crying. So I think he's sincere. If I learn more about him, I'll share more. If I get him on the show, that'll be a huge announcement. But it tied into what I was going through this week. Like I said, I didn't make a video. I make quick little videos in the truck, and I always got something that I want to talk about with you guys. But, one of my last videos was don't let the devil steal your joy, or something to that effect. And the devil stole my joy this week. And, Catholic for Rednecks always jokes and calls me Mr. Nice. He says, that's your nickname, you're too nice. And so I texted him one day and I said, yeah, I'm nice until I'm not. And, I wasn't always nice. And, one of my favorite actors just died this week, James Caan. And, when I was young, he was my favorite Corleone in The Godfather, Sonny. My dad's name was Sonny too. But Sonny was like someone I could relate to. I mean, they're just fictional characters, obviously, but they gave different personality types. I wanted to be like Michael, that cool, guy, but I was more like the hot-tempered, hot-headed Sonny. And when he kicked the crap out of his sister's husband for beating her, I could relate. A lot of people thought that was like such a violent scene, but that was like a scene in Newark and Irvington, New Jersey every day. That's how you that's what a street fight is. It's not this clean fight in an octagon where you got referees stopping you. Look at Sonny beating up his brother-in-law, and that's a street fight back in Jersey. So to me, I was like, yeah, this guy gets it, you know, he gets me, and we have the same personality type or whatever. But then God changed me, you know, God changes us. But, you know, we still have a flesh, which is our mind, our soul, you know, has 3 names. And we have a spirit, and our spirit, when our spirit's born again, if we follow the spirit, we'll have peace, joy, love, hope, patience. If we follow the flesh, there'll be anger, there'll be hate, there'll be jealousy, there'll be rage. But, you know, there's only, the only time that okay, so when we find ourselves expressing the traits of the flesh, you know you're following the flesh. And with me, you know, you can make fun of me, you can mock me, and usually it goes over my head anyway. Sometimes my friend's like, didn't you know that guy was insulting you? I'm like, oh, really? I thought he was just joking. He's like, no, he was serious. I'm like, whatever. But when you hurt my family, then I stop being nice. You know, and this is why I get mad at people that attack our Pope, people that attack our church. That's family. But when you get close to your wife and kids, there's nothing closer. And that's when I get in the flesh and the anger comes up. And, you know, the flesh and the spirit and your body's all connected. And the devil's going to attack your mind when you're in the flesh. And, you know, I'm emotionally exhausted, and I was like, I really feel led to do this video, but I don't have the strength, you know. And I just prayed about it, and then the verse came to me, and, you know, St. Paul said, in my weakness, he is strong. So I said, Lord, you got to do this video, you know, give me the strength. So while I was angry, I kept, you know, I'm not going to pull a Sonny and kick the crap at anybody. I'm way beyond that, you know, I'm way beyond that. But I was devising vengeance that were fair, that was legal, that I felt was just to hurt someone who hurt someone that I loved. I was devising all schemes, and they were so diabolical. I was like, whoa, how, you know? And then God showed me, he said, vengeance is mine. And I always, this is something key, listen to this, because you may have realized it, but it didn't click till this week. I always thought, you know, if I take vengeance, then I took it from God. And, you know, maybe I might hurt this guy a little bit, but God's vengeance is going to be a lot worse for this sucker. So I'll let God do it. You do it, Lord. I'm going to watch this. I want to watch you destroy this guy. But then God showed me vengeance is his, and it's better to give the vengeance to him, because my vengeance comes from hate. My vengeance comes from anger. His vengeance comes from love, a place of love, because God is love. There's no hate in God. So when his vengeance comes upon somebody, it's to convert them and to bring them back, to bring them to repentance, to save their soul from hell. Because this person I'm angry at, he's playing with fire, hellfire, literally. And I was like, God, forgive me. Help me to be more like you. That's so hard for me. To someone who hurts someone who I love, to love them enough to bring them back, to do, my objective got to be to restore this person, not to get even with them. And that's so hard. And then I was telling it to my wife, and she's like, wow, I wish you could have been at daily mass today. Father Derek had these nuns, and one of them, and it was such a beautiful, powerful service. And this nun said, we are letting the devil have our families. We got to stop letting him have our families. The devil is attacking the family. The devil hates the family. He's breaking up homes. He's breaking up marriages. The devil is prowling like a roaring lion, seeing whoever he could devour, and he's coming after the church. And she said, but we have the weapons of war to defeat this. She says the reason this is happening is because we don't care enough. And then she gave the acronym for care: confession, adoration, rosary, and Eucharist. And she gave the story. She grew up in Ireland, and her father abandoned her mother and her sisters when she was really little. And in Ireland, you know, at that time, that was like frowned upon. Everybody looked at them like they were outcasts. But the mother never gave up hope. She said she rang a bell every day, and all the sisters would run in. When they heard the bell, they knew it was time to pray the rosary as a family. And she said every day they did this for 8 years, and the father came home, and he's home today, 35 years later. He's still there. The power of praying the rosary, the power of praying as a family, the family that prays together stays together. And the Eucharist. We have so many gifts, you know. I feel like I was going to name this Asleep in the Light and just talk about this. Sometimes I'm asleep in the light. I'm so in love. God's given me all these gifts of the Catholic Church, and I don't utilize them. You know, I'm asleep in the light. I have all these gifts to use. You know, when I was a Protestant, I didn't have that. I had the Bible alone, which is awesome. We have that. And we have the whole Bible as Catholics, actually. But we have so much more. I didn't have confession when I was a Protestant. I didn't have adoration. I didn't have the rosary. I didn't have the Eucharist. But let me tell you this. When you get serious with God, you devote yourself to these caring principles, or you decide you're going to care, you get just totally sold out for Jesus, and you say, Jesus, I'm all in. I told Jesus this week, I'm all in. There's a couple of videos that I was reluctant to do, and I'm like, Jesus, if you want me to do these videos, I want to stir up a hornet's nest, but I'll do them. Lord willing, I'll get a chance to do them later or tomorrow. But this is what happens when you care, when you start praying seriously, and you put all these principles together and use all these gifts that God has given us as Catholic Christians. It's not like everything's going to go smoothly. No. Things are going to be torn up. Things are going to get chaotic. Things are going to get crazy. Rich Mullins, when he was on his way to becoming a Catholic, and he was going through some really hard times, he wrote these lyrics. Everything that can be shaken has been shaken, and all that remains is what I ever really had. When everything is shaken, remember this: faith, hope, and love remain. And the greatest is love. God bless.